Please welcome to the live from Studio 6B, the great John Solomon. Mr. Solomon, how are you? Thanks for jumping on short notice.
Good to be with you guys. How's everything going?
Very good. So we've only got about 5 minutes till we hit the break, but we've been covering your article. So I guess let's start here. Kind of, if you can, lay the groundwork for who are we talking about in this article? Let's lay the characters, the people, obviously other than Hunter Biden, which I think everybody knows, and tell us what we're looking at here.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, let's remind everybody that the FBI began criminally investigating Hunter Biden in late 2018. In December 2019, they got the laptop. In 2020, December 2020, Hunter Biden admitted that he was under criminal investigation for taxes. In 2021 and 2022, new witnesses came forward, and ultimately, Hunter Biden's already paid $2 million to try to make up for the taxes he didn't pay, according to his own representative. So people are asking, why has it taken 5 years to decide whether there should be criminal charges or some punishment for Hunter Biden? And today we now have the answer. A senior IRS criminal investigative agent, a supervisory agent, an agent who has worked on really important cases for the United States government, has won major awards for his work, including with Swiss banks. You know, it's been a big tax matter for the last decade. He worked on those cases. He approached the Treasury Inspector General a few weeks ago. That's the watchdog for the Treasury Department. He was referred to the Justice Department Inspector General. The Justice Department Inspector Michael Horace, the guy that reviewed the Russia collusion caper, has been investigating, found things credible. Today, that IRS agent's lawyer, Mark Lytle, very respected criminal defense attorney in Washington, former U.S. Justice Department prosecutor himself, alerted the Democrats and Republicans in Congress, a bipartisan letter saying, my client is prepared to tell you in Congress what he has already told the inspectors general, plural, that there has been preferential treatment in political interference, inappropriately so, in the case of Hunter Biden. And specifically, what I know from my reporting is that this agent has provided significant evidence showing that two political appointees of Joe Biden in the Justice Department, U.S. attorneys, declined to bring the tax case against Hunter Biden after the agency, FBI, the Delaware U.S. attorney, and the tax division all green-lighted such a prosecution. That's what this IRS agent is alleging. And again, I'm not going to do a Nancy Pelosi. Hunter Biden is presumed innocent, but this is what the whistleblower is saying. He then watched as Merrick Garland testified before Congress, before Senator Chuck Grassley, saying the Delaware U.S. attorney is free, he has all the authority, no political interference. If he wants to bring a charge anywhere, he can do it. That's what he told Senator Grassley. This agent looked up and said, that's not true. He then alerted the IG, the Inspector General, and today Congress, and he's prepared to deliver not only testimony, but receipts. And when I mean receipts, I mean contemporaneous emails, memos, internal memos, summaries of meetings with the prosecutors, what they said, what investigators were told they couldn't look at. And he's going to show why he believes this is an inappropriate thing. Immediately, Congress is welcoming this. James Comer, Jim Jordan, the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, who will be the first recipient of the information under the law, all today said they're prepared to dig in and find out the truth for the American people. This takes this case from why has Hunter Biden done all these things and influence peddling and Joe Biden selling government to now a cover-up. James Comer used the word obstruction of justice today, and some people now believe that the testimony of Merrick Garland may be false. So now this moves from just the original controversy and alleged crimes to now a potential cover-up.
All right, we're trying to blow the commercial break, but for some reason it's not working, John. So
I can stick around. Yeah.
Okay. Well, great. We'll hold you through the break. So I got about a minute here. So a couple things I want the audience to understand, because as we've been talking all night through the show, you know, we hear these things obviously come up. We see some of these speeches. We see Mayorkas testifying. We see Republicans giving fiery speeches. We read these stories that you continue to put out, and people just throw their hands up and go, yeah, it's great, but nothing's happening. So obviously the DOJ here is, it sounds like this guy, as you said, heard this and said, wait a minute, that's not true. Enough is enough. Let me come forward. So if he gets whistleblower status, what does that allow him? How do we know, or how would the audience know that the DOJ still doesn't try to put their thumb on this if this guy already feels like there's preferential treatment and he's coming forward because he's saying, wait a second, that's not at all true? How does whistleblower status get him around that? Will he be able to testify in public? What will happen?
Yes. The ultimate goal of these committees is to validate his information. If his information is validated, he will make a proffer of testimony. He will testify probably in a deposition And then that deposition will be made public, much like the information last week where we broke the story of the Biden campaign being behind the letter from the 51 intelligence officers. That was a political operation, not an intel operation. That will be the ultimate path of this if Congress deems that what he has is credible. Keep in mind, the Inspector General of the Justice Department already has deemed credible. My understanding from doing reporting today is the Inspector General of the Justice Department actually has corroborating witnesses to this whistleblower story. Remember, the Inspector General is independent of Merrick Garland. He can do whatever he wants. Merrick Garland can't mess with him. And so the Inspector General and Congress together create an independent path for this man to come forward and tell his story. If Congress believes it, the American people are going to hear it.
All right, we think we're going to take a break right now. We're going to go to the break, and we'll come back with John Solomon right after this. All right, I guess we're still live. All right, we thought we were going to blow the break there, John, and I guess it did let us. It didn't tell us that it let us.
Right.
So anyways, we'll continue on. So
we like surprises.
Yeah, you bring up exactly, especially live television.
So does the Biden family.
Yeah, the Biden family seems to like surprises too.
Yeah, they got a surprise today, I'll tell you.
Oh, yeah. The thing is, though, I feel like I said this before you came on. The 4 or 5 stories that you've covered, that we've covered, the revolving door at the White House that we know Hunter Biden affiliates had while he was vice president that we found out. We find out that they're involved, the White House is involved with the raid at Mar-a-Lago. We find out that the White House is knee-deep. This is the only White House that continues to tell us they know nothing of what's going on. They don't know when the Attorney General is going to speak. They don't know what the Attorney General is doing. But yet we find out with the letter on Hunter Biden's laptop from the 51 experts. We find from the Mar-a-Lago raid. We find all these things come to fruition that they know nothing, but they're knee-deep in everything. And now here's another one.
Yeah, listen, I can't say it any better than you did. That is exactly what this administration has presented us. They don't even know how they lost track of 85,000 unaccompanied migrant children, a story I broke a couple days ago. They have no answer for that. They have no answer for why they gave up Bagram air base, or how they bungled the exit withdrawal, or how the Taliban got in power in 7 days. They don't know why inflation wasn't transitory like they promised. They don't know anything, really. And I think the American people who believe they were hiring a competent president now have 2 years of excuses, false promises, false statements. Joe Biden looked into the camera, and the American people, when Donald Trump challenged him at that debate, that's your job interview for being president, and he told the American people, it's not true. I had nothing to do with my son. I never talked to my son about business. It's a lie. It's not true. 1 month later, we found out they knew all along that Hunter Biden was already under criminal investigation. They knew the laptop was real. They sent out a letter by 51 intelligence experts saying, oh, that laptop, don't use that. It's a Russian disinformation. It was true, and they knew at the time they wrote that letter that it was true. And this week we learned that the Biden campaign, in the person of Tony Blinken, actually helped ask the CIA official Mike Morrell to try to get this letter started. We'll see what the testimony shows, but they were behind the fake letter. The president, who promised to give us straight talk, has given us nothing but excuses and false answers. And at some point, the American people have caught on. That's why he's at 38% approval rating. They don't trust him anymore.
Yeah. Let me ask you how this all intertwines with some of the other stuff we're hearing. Now, we've seen videos of MTG, of a couple other congressmen and women who have gone into, I'm assuming, skiffs at the Treasury, or to look at some of these SARs that I feel like me and you have been talking about now for, it seems like a year and a half that we've been talking about these SARs that were sent to the Treasury Department. And I look at this 2 million number in your report today about disclosed last year he paid overdue tax bills totaling 2 million. And I'm thinking about all of the money that supposedly these SARs are representing, maybe hundreds, if not tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars from the Chinese that seemingly have come into the Biden family, if not directly to Hunter Biden. Will this open the door to go back and look at numbers like that and go, yeah, 2 million? It should have been more like 30 million because they took in 150 million. Will this open the door to other things, like a special prosecutor? They start on one thing and they end up finding 5 different things that they weren't really assigned for. Could the same thing be happening here?
We don't know, right? I think that that's why our Congress is. That's why those members of Congress have been going in. And what they're going to do now is, after seeing the SARs, they're going to go to the banks and say, give us the actual transactions and the path of those transactions beyond where the United States government tracked them. Because at some point, the Treasury Department was in the protection racket. They didn't really do anything to Hunter Biden. There wasn't a criminal investigation. There wasn't an indictment for a long time. These records just sat there. So James Comer, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was in the other day, Nancy Mace, who was in the other day, Matt Gaetz, who's been in, and of course Jim Jordan, the other really key player in this alongside of James Comer. They're doing all the work that the federal government failed to do, and it's tedious work. You build this, as one lawmaker said to me recently, like you build a mod case. You get the facts, you roll up one guy, the next guy rolls up to the next guy, this guy rolls up to the next guy. Right now, they have Mike Morrell acknowledging that Anthony Blinken was involved in the formation of this letter. Now they got to go to Anthony Blinken. They keep rolling up. When they get to Anthony Blinken, the question is, did you talk to Joe Biden about this? Was Joe Biden behind this? That's the sort of methodical way that these congressional committees are doing. They're making progress every day. I think the acceleration of information we're getting tells you they're making great progress. Hunter Biden's former most important business partner, Eric Schwerin, is cooperating, according to James Comer. They're doing the work that the U.S. government, the Justice Department, the FBI, and the IRS may not have done. And they're going to create an alternate picture. They're going to give people the full facts. And then the question is going to be, why wasn't he charged? Was there a cover-up? Should we take action against the president of the United States? Have we been lied to by the president and all of his men and women? And those are the questions that are going to carry. This is going to be a long, hot summer, I predict, for two people. Merrick Garland, whose testimony is now in question based on the IRS whistleblower, and Anthony Blinken. If Mike Morrell's testimony comes out, as U.S. intelligence officials have told me, and he has implicated Anthony Blinken in the chain of who got behind this letter, that's going to be a big question. The Secretary of State, the sitting Secretary of State, was involved in a dirty trick on the American people, a letter that was never true.
Yeah. It seems there's a lot of lying going on in front of Congress these days of people who get up there and just seemingly just forget the truth or misrepresent. I did find it interesting that Byron Donalds asked the SEC chairman, Gary Gensler, who was testifying yesterday, about any role in him and Hillary Clinton in taking or arranging payment on the Steele dossier. He looked like he saw a ghost when Byron Donalds asked him that. And my question to all of this is, I hear Clay Higgins today tell Mayorkas that we have so many whistleblowers coming forward, we can't even keep track of all of them who want to testify against you. Do you think that's going on in do you think Jim Jordan and Comer and these guys are also having whistleblowers that we don't know about from some of the other three-letter agencies who have just had enough of what's going on the inside?
Yeah, so I've been doing whistleblower reporting since the early 1990s. And, 2, 3, 4 years, a big year. There are more than 100 whistleblowers that I've had contact with or whose lawyers I've had contact with. Congress has similar. They're in every agency, DOJ. Now we have IRS, the FBI. We know about the 25 that Ron Johnson, Jim Jordan, and Chuck Grassley are talking about. There are people inside the FDA concerning the baby shortage formula crisis and other things. There are people in the Energy Department. There are people in the Interior Department. There are numerous lawsuits now alleging violations. We just had the U.S. Special Counsel conclude yesterday, a senior Biden administration official, the Health and Human Services Secretary, Xavier Becerra, the guy who lost track of those 85,000 children that we talked about a little bit ago, he violated the Hatch Act. That was as a result of a whistleblower. Almost in every agency now, there are patriotic federal workers who have the same sentiments as this IRS whistleblower. Go look at the letter and look what he said. We didn't follow the norms. We're giving Hunter Biden's case preferential treatment and political treatment, and he's not being treated like any other skell that came in the door. That's what the letter basically says. There are people who think that's not why I got in government. That's not why I became a criminal investigator. It's not why I became a lawyer. They are coming out in the largest number that I've seen in my 35 years as an investigative reporter. People in government don't like the government that Joe Biden has built. They don't like the behavior, the activity, the targeting, and they don't feel like it's America. And I had a whistleblower to me say yesterday, did you think ever in your lifetime or my lifetime, John, we would see the president of El Salvador and the president of Mexico lecture us on ethics and democracy? How insulting is that to the American people that the Joe Biden machinery actually, and the Democratic machinery, makes this country look like a banana republic to countries that used to be banana republics?
Yeah. Yeah, that our State Department would have stood up and talked against it. And our president. And now these are the people that are involved with doing it here. Rick Delgado's got a question, and then I have one more for you.
Sure.
Yeah. Hey, John, let me ask you this, because you being a reporter as long as you have, and we've had this discussion, because we see it all the time coming out of the press briefing room. I feel like it started with the Obama administration, where they throw up their hands and be like, oh, we only found out about this scandal when you did. How much is that a lie? I mean, from what I understand, reporters, when they're working on a story, not only do they have their source, but they also go to the subject of the story, right? And they go, hey, do you have a comment on this? So the person or the administration's going to know, hey, we got this story coming out, right? Is that the way it works?
I'm going to take a great anecdote that is the letter from the 51 officials. If you look at the letter that those 51 security officials, they really never make the claim that it was Russian disinformation. How did that Russian disinformation piece get into the letter? It gets shoehorned in at the last minute when a USA Today article from anonymous sources alleges that it's Russian disinformation. That comes out like a few hours before the letter starts being circulated to the news media. That is how disinformation in the political world in Washington is played. These 51 people, they talk about something more generic. Hey, you always got to be careful in election of foreign government. Right. And then someone adds this USA Today article in there, and they inject an idea that most of the 51 people that I've talked to said, we didn't even know it was going to be in the letter. We were kind of caught off guard by that. That's how this game is played. One of the things that my colleagues in the news media have to become to grips with, they have to do it. They have to look at Jeff Gurr's story in the Columbia Journalism Review and say, we have been played by the people like the Biden campaign, like Joe Biden himself, like Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell, and all those people who told us, trust us, we have the goods on Trump, and they didn't have it. They have to come to a recognition that they've been played day in and day out for 6, 7, 8 years in a sophisticated game of disinformation. By the way, the Russians aren't as good as disinformation as our own political campaigns and political candidates are right now. What has been imposed on the American people since 1999, when they started attacking my reporting on Hunter Biden, is a disinformation game. What's been imposed on the American people since 1996 is the use of disinformation to launch criminal investigations like Russia collusion against political enemies. Over a 7-year period, the American government, the American news media, the American political body, the elitists in the political body have repeatedly imposed disinformation on the American people. And thus far, there hasn't been a consequence. 2024 will be an election where the American people will be asked, are you going to punish the people that lied to you for the last 7 years, told you inflation was transitory, the baby formula shortage was inevitable when it wasn't, that gas prices weren't going to stay high, or that the Hunter Biden laptop was disinformation? Are you going to trust them? And if you do so at your own future fate as Americans. If you don't, here's the time to fire them and put new people in charge. And that is one of the fundamental questions that Republicans need to make in every person who enters the election booth in 2024. The answer is Democrats in the media think the American people are stupid, and they've been lying so long, they forgot that they're doing it. And the American people have to say, we're not stupid, and you're fired.
Yeah. Well said. Let me ask you, John, since I haven't had a chance to talk to you since the whistleblower thing all went down, I feel like I've been doing this show since 2015, and in any other year other than the last 2.5 years, I wouldn't have ever thought about even questioning or thinking twice about a story like this. But I feel like I'm with Kash Patel, at least what I've heard of his take on this so far. Like, are we supposed to believe this 21-year-old who what's your feeling on this whole story? Do you feel like we're getting the full story here, or where do you fall on this story?
Listen, I think there's a lot more reporting that needs to be done, and we just got to go do the reporting. The way we unraveled or determined whether Russia collusion was true or not was by getting facts, not surmising, not guessing. What the media has done for most of the last few years is substituted their opinion, their hopes and wishes for facts that weren't in evidence. I say we go get the facts, we go get the evidence, and we do that. I haven't really worked that closely on this because there's so many other stories I've been working on and processing the last few weeks. Yeah. But there's really simple things. Follow the money, follow the facts. You can unravel any fake story, or you can affirm any story if you just stick to it. And Jim Jordan showed us that, Devin Nunes showed us that, Kash Patel showed us that. We just got to get to the bottom. It's going to take some time. There's so many stories out there, but this trust that Kash Patel expresses at the outset, it's earned, because so many times we've been taking the woodshed with things we were told that were true that turned out to be totally bogus.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I can't have you on without asking you, because I think it's like a ritual now. John Durham?
yeah, John Durham. Yeah.
Where do we think we're at with him?
I don't know. I called the Marshal Service to see if he was in the witness protection program. I can't find the guy. Listen, I do know that's not fair to him. That's not fair. I shouldn't be so snobby.
Just a little joke.
He's putting the finishing touches on a report that I think will be very informative to the American people. It won't be the accountability that we could have had if Sussman had been convicted or other people are convicted. But hey, we have a jury system. When people are found and acquitted, that's the end of it. That's how it works. John Durham read the cards. He realized that though he might have had evidence of more crimes, he was never going to get a conviction for a sympathetic or a character who persecuted Donald Trump anymore in Washington or New York, and that's where he had to bring most of the cases. So he moved to a report, and I think his report will fill in a lot of blanks, and they'll also tell us something. I want to go back to this one subject because I think it's the most important subject. Has our government been lying to us day in and day out? I want to know, did John Brennan, when he went on television on MSNBC and CNN and all the other intelligence officials, what did they know when they said what they said? Because either they were really badly informed, which isn't great if you're a CIA director, or you've been lying. We need to find those answers. I think John Durham's going to provide a lot of color, a lot of facts, a lot of answers, but it won't be the sort of accountability that people who are law and order people are going to want. He tried. He could not get those convictions in Washington and New York. And I think that should be troubling to us as well, that the identity of the person and the victim influenced the outcome of the trial. People in these cities don't like Donald Trump, and they're willing to let go. Remember what the jury foreman in the first case said. I think it was in the Sussman case. Of course, he probably lied. It just wasn't worth my time. That's not the way juries used to act. And so I think at the end of the day, we have a bigger problem about the state of our jurisprudence in America.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, I know it's a busy night. I always appreciate you giving us some time. Thank you very, very much. And as always, just a great job over at Just the News, justthenews.com, the great John Solomon. John, thanks again.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night.